What if I told you that the world you're seeing right now isn't real? That every building, every face, every problem was carefully programmed into your perception to keep you asleep? This isn't just about media lies or school indoctrination. This is ancient energetic manipulation designed to control your very consciousness. Hidden texts, banned scrolls, and whispers from reincarnated seers all point to the same truth. You're living inside a program, and the illusion is almost perfect. You can either keep obeying a reality that was never yours, or unlock the deepest secret they never wanted you to remember. You think you're looking at the world, but what you're actually seeing is a projection, a simulation, a carefully curated hallucination designed to appear solid, rational, and real, but none of it is real. And somewhere deep inside, you've always known that. You're not interacting with the raw truth of existence. You're interacting with symbols. Filtered data, frequencies disguised as form. What you call reality is more like a dream being fed to you through a limited channel of perception, one that was tampered with long ago. From the moment you were born, you were calibrated to see in a specific bandwidth. You were told, this is blue, this is your name, this is the world, and you believed it. But what if I told you those were the first lines of code in the program? What if even your senses were pre-installed limitations? Right now your eyes only perceive less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. Your ears? Just a fraction of the sound waves vibrating all around you. You walk through oceans of information and see only a drop. Not because you lack intelligence, but because the program was written to keep you blind. Ancient mystics, sages, and awakened initiates knew this. They spoke in riddles and symbols to hide the truth in plain sight. Maya, they called it in the East. The illusion, the dream, not a metaphor. A literal, energetic trap, camouflaged as everyday life. The sky you see, the skin. The people around you, avatars of patterns, running scripts, often unaware they're dreaming too. Even your thoughts, especially your thoughts, are part of the illusion. Repeating narratives handed down to you through language, education, religion, trauma, each one layering another veil over your inner vision. You were not meant to be like this. You were not born with this limitation. Your soul, your essence, it came here with memory, with power, with light. But the moment you took your first breath, something else stepped in. The program. You see, this isn't just about society's rules or government control. This goes deeper, far deeper. This is about frequency entrapment. You are an energetic being, a luminous field of consciousness, vibrating at a divine signature. But that signature was hijacked. Your energy was inverted. Your divine memory fragmented, not by accident, but by design. This is what they never told you, that your suffering feeds them, that your fear is fuel, that every moment you're trapped in judgment, self-hatred, comparison, anxiety, you're leaking energy, and someone, something is harvesting it. In Gnostic texts, they were called archons, parasitic entities, not of flesh, but of mind and vibration. In other systems, they were named differently. Jinn, deceivers, energy vampires. But the pattern is the same. They cannot create, they can only feed. So they built a farm, a simulation, a beautifully intricate illusion that looks like choice but feels like stagnation. You were given toys, distractions, ideologies. You were told to chase dreams that weren't yours, love people who couldn't see you, build a life that never nourished your soul, and all along your divine essence was being drained. And still, you felt something didn't add up. You felt the glitch, the déjà vu, the cracks in the mirror. That flicker of awareness when time slows down, or the world stutters, like a program lagging. Those weren't coincidences. That was the truth peeking through. That was your higher self knocking. But the system is clever. It creates fail-safes, emotional loops, trauma cycles. So even when you start to wake up, it feeds you another lie, another identity to wear. You're a rebel now, it says, a spiritual seeker, And just like that, the program reinvents itself, still looping, still draining, but wearing a different face. This is how deep it goes. Because you see, you're not just seeing the program, you are partially running it until you break the contract, not consciously, not willingly, but through unexamined beliefs, habits, emotions, and forgotten wounds. The subconscious is the code base. And if you don't rewrite it, it continues to execute the same script, again and again. Even your name, your sense of self, your idea of who you are. That's the interface, that's the login screen. And every time you log in as the version of you the world trained you to be, you re-enter the matrix. But here's the miracle. The moment you truly see the illusion, you shift it. Not metaphorically, energetically, vibrationally. You begin to unplug not from machines, but from beliefs, from identities, from fear-based energy loops. You begin to remember. And when that remembering happens, the program trembles, because it cannot survive your awakening. It depends on your unconscious agreement, your energetic signature of consent. And when you revoke that consent, when you declare, I am sovereign, I am divine, I am the creator, not the consumer, the script begins to unravel. You didn't come here to obey the dream. You came here to outgrow it. And every moment you choose presence over reaction, intuition over programming, breath over panic, you reclaim a piece of your original power, the divine frequency encoded in your soul before this realm ever touched you. And this is just the beginning. Everything you think you know about yourself was built inside that illusion. Your preferences, your fears, your beliefs about success, about death, even your sense of time. None of it is neutral. All of it was scripted. They gave you a name and told you it was yours. They gave you a nationality and said, this is who you are. They showed you a flag and a religion and said, this is truth. They stacked books of history in front of you, erased others, and said, this is the past. But they never told you who wrote it. They never told you what they removed, and they definitely never told you why. You think time is linear because they taught you to see it that way. But your soul knows better. The ticking clock, the calendars, the deadlines, they're not real. They're rituals of control. Time is not a straight line. It's a loop, and they keep you inside it through trauma, repetition, and amnesia. Have you ever noticed how the same lessons keep repeating in your life? The same patterns, the same heartbreaks, the same frustrations? That's not coincidence. That's the code looping. It repeats until you override it. And then there's reincarnation, the grand cycle. You've been taught it's a gift, a second chance, a way to grow. But what if it's not? What if reincarnation is just another layer of the trap? Another form of spiritual taxation, where your memory is wiped clean and you start again, blind, confused, obedient. Every time you die, they reset the dream, reload the program, and send you back in. And the only way out is to remember. Because here's the deeper truth. They can't touch your soul. Not really. They can't destroy your divinity, but they can cover it up. They can wrap it in fear and shame. They can shatter your attention into 1,000 distractions. They can make you forget what you are. So they did. They fed you pain and told you it was growth. They handed you suffering and called it karma. They made trauma sacred so you'd cling to it. And all along, they harvested the energy of your emotions, turning every breakdown into a battery. Not for your evolution, but for theirs. These beings, the ones behind the program, they exist beyond your senses. They're not demons in the way you've been taught. They're not monsters in cloaks. They're frequencies, ancient predatory intelligences that learned long ago how to feed on human consciousness. They don't need your flesh. They need your fear, your sadness, your grief, your unprocessed energy. That's their food. That's the economy of the Matrix. And so, they created systems, governments to instill fear, religions to shame your divinity, media to shape your thoughts, schools to bury your intuition, corporations to numb your body, and entertainment to keep your soul asleep. All of it coded into your perception like background music you forgot was playing. But even with all of that, even with every layer of deception they built into this dream, you still heard something, a whisper, a pull, a spark in the darkness that said, "None of this is right." That was you, the real you, the you beyond the program, the sovereign, radiant intelligence that exists outside of all labels, the architect buried beneath the avatar. And now, that part of you is rising. You're not crazy for questioning this world. You're not lost, you're remembering. You're pulling back the curtain and seeing the wizard for what he is. A projectionist, casting shadows on the cave wall and calling it reality. And once you see it, truly see it, you can't go back. Because now you feel it. You feel the glitch when someone says something that doesn't align. You feel the static in conversations that used to make sense. You walk into rooms and sense the fog. That's not imagination. That's awareness. And the more you remember, the less the illusion holds. The real war isn't outside you. It's not fought with weapons or politicians. It's fought in consciousness. It's fought in attention. Where you place your energy is where you place your vote for reality. They trained you to vote for fear, but you don't have to anymore. The program only survives if you run its code. If you stop running it, it collapses. Not because it was defeated, but because it was never real to begin with. Just an echo, a script, a hypnosis. And you are waking up from it. You don't need to fight the illusion. You need to stop energizing it. You don't need to escape the matrix. You need to remember that it was never built for your true self to begin with. This is why they fear you. Not because of your muscles or your mind, but because of your memory. When you remember who you are fully, unapologetically, they lose their grip. Because a sovereign soul doesn't feed the system. A sovereign soul creates its own. So breathe. Feel your body. Feel your awareness stretching beyond the walls of the room you're in. Feel how big you really are. How quiet it is when the noise fades. That stillness is you. That silence is home. That presence is the doorway out. And once you walk through it, the game begins to change. They'll try to pull you back with fear, with urgency, with guilt. They'll dangle old patterns, familiar comforts, the praise of people who never really saw you. But none of it holds once you've remembered the code, once you've seen the dream for what it is. Because now, you're no longer a character in their story. You're writing your own. But writing your own story requires something the program has trained you to fear. Sovereignty. Because sovereignty means responsibility. It means no more blaming the system, no more waiting for rescue, no more hiding behind identities that don't serve you. It means standing in the raw presence of your being and realizing that you are the source. Not a victim of the program, but the one who unknowingly powered it. And when you see that, really see it, your entire perception begins to shift. Things that once held meaning suddenly dissolve. The chase for validation, the need to be right, the desire to fit in, it all falls away. Because none of it was ever really yours. It was given to you, injected, installed, like software. And now, you're uninstalling it. You start to hear the static behind people's words. You feel the tightness in old belief systems. You begin to question why you ever accepted a reality where suffering was normalized, where joy was rationed, where truth was outsourced. And something deep within you answers back, you didn't. You were entrained into it. And now you begin the deprogramming, not through force but through awareness, not by fighting the darkness, but by becoming so luminous it can't hold shape in your field. You notice your thoughts without becoming them. You feel your emotions without drowning in them. You begin to watch, and from that place of witnessing the spell begins to break. You're not your name. You're not your past. You're not the stories that orbit your identity. Those are just costumes the program handed you. Beautiful ones, painful ones, clever ones, but they were never the truth. You are the one beneath the masks. You are the one who breathes when the mind is silent. You are the stillness between the thoughts, the awareness behind the noise. And when you reclaim that position, the world starts to reorganize around your frequency, because reality doesn't bend to force, it bends to resonance. The moment you raise your frequency beyond fear, the architecture of the illusion begins to collapse beneath you. You don't have to burn the system down. You just stop playing by its rules. You exit the board. You unplug, not through rebellion, but through remembrance, and that remembrance unlocks everything. You begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. You remember the child who saw magic in trees, who felt energy in silence, who talked to the sky and heard it whisper back. You remember the lifetimes you've lived beyond this veil, the languages your soul once spoke, the temples where you once stood tall and sovereign, the stars you once called home. And in that remembering, you don't just feel powerful, you feel ancient, infinite, whole. That's why the program fears you, because when you remember, you don't need it anymore. You don't need its systems, its rules, its validations. You become untouchable, not because you fight, but because you vibrate out of reach. Your energy becomes unconsumable. Your emotions no longer leak. Your thoughts no longer hook. And the parasites? They move on, because you no longer feed them. They go silent when you reclaim your center. They vanish when you stop reacting. They weaken every time you choose love over fear, presence over panic, stillness over stimulation. And yes, they'll test you. They'll push back, not because they're strong, but because they're desperate. Desperate to pull you back into the script, to keep you bound to roles you've already outgrown, to convince you that you're still that fractured version of yourself who needed permission to exist. But you're not. You are the observer, the creator, the consciousness that gives the illusion its form. And when you own that, fully, unapologetically, the game ends. Because the program cannot run in a field of truth. It's incompatible. It requires confusion. It requires distortion. It requires your unconscious cooperation, and when that ends, the program unravels like fog under sunlight. This is where your freedom begins, not with escape but with seeing. Seeing that reality is malleable, that time is not a straight line, that space is not a distance, that you are not here to be small, obedient, or afraid. You are here to awaken, to dissolve the lie, to anchor a new blueprint of being so radiant, so real, that the illusion can't survive in its presence. And yes, there will be moments when the program tries to seduce you again, when comfort disguises itself as alignment, when old fears masquerade as logic, when old habits whisper just loud enough to feel safe again. But you'll know. You'll feel the dissonance, the static, the unease that tells you, this isn't truth. And in those moments, you'll return to yourself, to breath, to presence, to the now. Because the now is the only place the program can't follow. It exists in the past you regret and the future you fear. It exists in distraction and division. It exists in false timelines, fabricated identities, reactive emotion. But it cannot exist where you are fully present, fully embodied, fully aware. That is your power. To see without distortion, to feel without leaking, to be without acting, to exist without explanation. That's the space of the sovereign, the true you, the one the program has tried to bury beneath 1,000 layers of noise, labels, wounds, and lies. But now, you're waking up, and nothing can stop that, because truth doesn't need validation, it doesn't need proof. It simply is. And once you stand in it, once you feel its frequency in your bones, there's no turning back. The illusion will try to reclaim you, but you've seen too much, you've remembered too deeply, and the soul, once awakened, doesn't forget. Now the question becomes, how much more are you willing to see? Because once you see the cracks, you begin to notice everything. The way people repeat phrases like scripts, the way society runs on rituals that no one questions, the way your phone, your job, your thoughts all seem to be synchronized not by chance but by design. And in the silence between the noise, you begin to hear something older, a rhythm that doesn't belong to the machine, a pulse that echoes from beyond the veil. It's the rhythm of your soul calling you back to truth. You begin to realize that the world you were taught to see is not the world as it is. It's the world as it's been filtered, packaged, and sold to you. You weren't just trained to perceive reality, you were trained to not perceive what's actually there. You were taught to look away from the spaces in between, to ignore the energy behind the matter, to mock the unseen, to doubt your intuition, to trade your inner knowing for scientific permission slips. But now, the veil is thinning, and even those who once laughed at mystics are feeling it. The hum beneath the surface, the shifting timelines, the breakdown of systems that once seemed so permanent. The matrix is glitching, and you are not imagining it. You were never meant to stay asleep forever. The illusion was never perfect. It was only designed to be convincing enough to keep you distracted, obedient, looping. But your soul? It's ancient. It's encoded with memory that goes far beyond this lifetime. And those memories are starting to bleed through dreams, through synchronicities, through spontaneous realizations that shatter everything you thought was true. And with every layer that crumbles, something else emerges. Clarity. A remembering. A feeling of coming home to something you can't quite name but that feels more real than anything this world has offered you. It's not logical. It's not linear. It's cellular. It's vibrational. It's the truth resonating through your body like a forgotten song you suddenly remember every word to. You don't need to read it in a book. You don't need to hear it from a teacher. The knowing is already inside you, buried beneath the noise, waiting, and now it's rising, like a tide that cannot be stopped. Yes, there will be moments of grief, because you'll start to see how much of your life was spent in a trance. You'll see the lies you believed, the truths you ignored, the energy you gave to systems that never loved you. And for a moment, that grief will sting. But let it, because that grief is proof that you've woken up. You are no longer numb. You are no longer hypnotized. You are feeling again. And feeling is the beginning of sovereignty. As you awaken, the world begins to reorganize. Not because the world changes first, but because you do. Your vibration becomes incompatible with what once drained you. Your body begins to reject the food, the media, the conversations that were designed to dull your senses. You start craving silence, nature, movement, stillness. You start needing less but feeling more. You laugh more often, but you also cry more deeply because your heart is coming back online, and with it your multi-dimensional intelligence. This is where the true shift happens, not on a screen, not in a classroom, but in your frequency, because frequency is everything. It's not just a concept, it's the fabric of existence. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And when you shift your state of being, you shift the program around you. You start to witness miracles, not because they weren't happening before, but because now you can see them. Time bends. Reality stretches. People begin to mirror your evolution. Some fall away. Others appear like they were waiting for you all along. You find yourself speaking words you've never studied, knowing things you never learned. It's not magic, it's memory. Soul memory reactivating through vibration. The more you align with your sovereign frequency, the less you need the old structures. You no longer chase, you no longer perform, you no longer negotiate with your intuition. You simply become, you embody, you broadcast, and the program begins to glitch in your presence. Because this reality is reactive, it's not fixed. It responds to consciousness. That's why they worked so hard to program your mind. Not because you're weak, but because you're powerful. So powerful that they needed an entire system to keep you from realizing it. But now, the code is crumbling, because enough souls are remembering. Enough of you are choosing presence over programming, truth over comfort, expansion over safety. And with each awakening, the collective grid shifts. The illusion isn't collapsing from outside pressure. It's collapsing from within, from you, from your choice to no longer play small, to no longer dim your light to keep the dream stable. You didn't come here to maintain the simulation. You came here to disrupt it. You came here to look at the false light and say, I see through you. You came here to take off the mask even if everyone else still wears theirs. You came here to show what real freedom looks like. Not the kind offered through politics or systems, but the kind that erupts from within when you stop pretending to be what you are not. You are not your wounds. You are not your history. You are not your shame or your doubts or your patterns. You are light. You are source consciousness, localized into form, just long enough to remember itself. And once you remember, you stop reacting to the world and start creating it. The program can't hold you anymore, not because it changed, but because you did. You are no longer vibrating at the frequency of fear. You are no longer hooked by control. You have unplugged, not with rebellion, but with awareness. Not by fighting the illusion, but by dissolving your agreement with it. Now you stand on the edge of everything you've ever known, and the voice rising within you is no longer a whisper. It's a roar. You don't need a revolution outside of you. You need a revelation inside of you. And that revelation is already happening. The walls of the old reality are trembling, not because they're under attack, but because your awareness is expanding. The box can't hold you anymore, because you're not who you were when you entered it. You're not the role. You're not the persona. You're not the thoughts that loop or the fears that flicker. You're the one who sees them, the one who witnesses the play without getting lost in the script. And from that place you become unshakable. It's not that pain disappears. It's that pain no longer defines you. It becomes information, feedback, a signal that you've stepped out of alignment and nothing more. You stop resisting what comes and begin responding to it with presence. You begin speaking with power, not volume. You begin creating with intention, not desperation. And everything around you starts to shift because the frequency you broadcast is no longer rooted in survival. It's rooted in truth. The truth begins to inform everything. You start recognizing the invisible architecture of the dream, the patterns in behavior, the energy behind people's words, the frequency in every environment. You don't need to analyze it. You feel it. You read it like a second language you forgot you were fluent in. You walk into rooms and sense what's unspoken. You hear lies before they're fully formed. You see projections before they land, because your perception has returned to its original clarity. This is the clarity the program worked so hard to bury. It knew that if you ever accessed this again, it couldn't control you. It couldn't sell you fear. It couldn't loop you in conflict. It couldn't make you crave validation from systems designed to belittle you. But now, you're immune to that. Not because you built a wall, but because you've dissolved the illusion that there was ever something outside you that could define your worth. Until you let go of needing to be understood, of needing to be right, of needing to convince others, because you see it now, how the program runs through unresolved identity, through insecurity, through the mind's need to prove itself. You see how it thrives on attention, and instead of feeding it, you pull your energy back in, you center, you breathe, you stand in your knowing, and you radiate. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs your signal. It needs your frequency, the one that can't be copied, the one that shatters illusions simply by existing, the one that carries codes only your soul holds. This is why you came here, not to fix the system, not to win within it, but to out-vibrate it. And yes, there will be moments when the dream tries to seduce you again, when the comfort of being asleep feels easier than the responsibility of being awake, when old patterns resurface like ghosts knocking on your door. But this time, you don't open it. You don't need to fight them. You just see them. You acknowledge them without identification, and in doing so, they dissolve, because nothing unreal can survive in the presence of one who sees clearly. That's the gift of awakening. It doesn't make you perfect, it makes you powerful. It doesn't make life easy, it makes you conscious. And with that consciousness, you begin to navigate the dream in a whole new way. Not as a player trying to win, but as a creator realizing the game was never real. You laugh more, not because everything is funny, but because you see through the absurdity of the illusion. You cry more, not because you're broken, but because your heart is open again, and through that openness you become the medicine the world has been starving for. Not by doing, by being. You become the mirror that reflects truth. You become the presence that interrupts the pattern. You become the voice that carries remembrance. And those around you? Some will resist it. Some will fall away, but others will awaken just by being near you. Not because you convinced them, but because your frequency gave them permission to feel what they had buried. That is how this dream ends. Not with war, not with collapse, but with waves of remembrance rippling through the grid, one soul at a time, choosing to unplug, choosing to embody, choosing to create from truth instead of trauma. And you're already doing it. You've already made the choice. You're not watching this by accident. You were guided here, not by an algorithm, but by a deeper intelligence within you, one that is aligning people, places and experiences to pull you further into your awakening. And with every word, with every breath, that pull becomes stronger. The illusion doesn't stand a chance against that kind of power. It can only survive when you forget, when you disconnect, when you doubt. But those days are ending. The fog is lifting. The memory is returning. And you're no longer who you were yesterday. You're becoming who you were before the world told you what to be. And this version of you, this sovereign, awake, unshakable you, is not here to survive the matrix. You're here to collapse it from the inside, quietly, gently, with grace, because the program was never real. But you are, and now, the real dreaming begins. You were never meant to conform to this illusion. You were meant to disrupt it with your presence. Your awareness alone carries the codes of dissolution, not destruction through violence, but collapse through exposure. Because illusions cannot survive the gaze of truth. They fall apart the moment you see through them. That's the real revolution, not in the streets, but in your perception, in the quiet turning of your attention away from the noise and back to the source within you. The program wants you to believe that the answer is out there, that freedom is something to fight for. But freedom isn't a prize. It's a remembering. You were free the moment you chose to awaken. You were free the moment you stopped asking for permission to exist. You were free the moment you stopped identifying with the mask and started embodying the soul. And the soul doesn't play games. The soul doesn't negotiate with limitation. The soul doesn't follow scripts. It creates new ones. It births new timelines simply by vibrating in alignment. This is what they don't want you to know. That your vibration is not passive, it's the steering wheel of your entire experience. Shift it and you shift everything. Change your frequency and reality reorganizes itself in your presence. You don't need more knowledge, you need deeper knowing. The kind that doesn't come from reading or watching or thinking. The kind that arrives in silence, in stillness, in presence. The knowing that whispers from beyond the veil, reminding you that you are not a character in the simulation. You are the awareness it's projected onto. And once you embody that, the illusion starts responding to you differently. Patterns that once repeated begin to break. Situations that once triggered you lose their grip. People that drain your energy start to fall away. You're not losing them, you're outgrowing them, because your field can no longer support what isn't aligned. You'll feel the void at first, the quiet, the space where the noise used to live, and for a moment you might feel alone. But you're not alone. You're just between worlds. Between the programmed life you're shedding and the sovereign existence you're building, that in-between, it's sacred. It's where the new code is written. It's where you stop reacting and start creating. And creation doesn't begin with action. It begins with vibration. What you radiate is what you attract. What you expect is what you invite. What you allow is what you embody. This is the new architecture of reality. Not rules, not structure. Resonance. You're not here to force, you're here to align. You're not here to chase, you're here to magnetize. And the more you ground into who you really are, the less effort it takes. Because the truth doesn't need effort. It needs embodiment. It needs trust. It needs your willingness to be seen as something unfamiliar to a world still clinging to the dream. And yes, that might make you feel like an outsider, a misfit, a glitch in the matrix. But that's exactly what you are. A conscious disruption in a system designed to suppress the divine. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to remind this world of what it forgot. And you do that by being exactly what the program told you not to be. Fully awake, deeply feeling, endlessly free. When you stop dimming your light to match the room, you start becoming the room. You start shifting the frequency just by being in it. You stop adapting to dysfunction and start radiating coherence. You stop mirroring fear and start amplifying truth. And that shift, it doesn't just change your life. It creates ripples that move through the entire collective. Because we're all connected. Every soul, every field, every frequency. The illusion has worked so hard to convince you that you're separate, that you're alone. But you're not. You are a node in a vast web of awakening. A light in a grid that's turning back on. And every time you choose truth, every time you choose sovereignty, that light gets brighter. And others, they start to remember because of you. Not because you teach, not because you preach, but because you are. Your being becomes the lesson, your energy becomes the message. You don't have to say anything. Your frequency speaks for itself. And that frequency, it isn't created through striving. It's revealed through shedding. Shedding the stories, the programming, the fear, the guilt, the shame. All of it was never yours to carry. It was placed on you to keep you from flying. But your wings were never broken, just bound. And now you're unbinding them. With every breath, with every choice to return to the truth, you're peeling away the illusion. And underneath it all, you find yourself. Not the self they told you to be, the self that was always there, waiting, watching, whispering in dreams, sending signals through synchronicity, nudging you through discomfort. That self is ready. And as you let it lead, life becomes something else entirely. Not a path to walk, but a frequency to surf. Not a game to win, but a dream to shape. You stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, what am I being called to remember? Because the answers were never out there. They were always embedded in your being, in your breath, in your heart, in your stillness. The world will still try to pull you back. It will tempt you with distractions. It will echo old patterns. It will use people who haven't yet remembered to try to make you doubt your awakening. But the more you trust yourself, the quieter those echoes become. The more you anchor into truth, the less power they hold. And suddenly, you're not reacting anymore, you're choosing. You're not surviving, you're creating. You're not hoping for freedom, you're living it. Because you've remembered. And once you remember, you can never go back. You begin to feel the illusion breaking around you in subtle ways. The way time feels different now. like it's folding instead of stretching. The way certain people can no longer meet your gaze. The way places that once felt comfortable now feel heavy. You're not imagining it. You're rising out of the old frequency, and the old frequency is rejecting you, like a system expelling a virus. But you're not the virus. You're the cure, you're the code rewrite, you're the anomaly that restores balance through remembrance. And as you rise, you start noticing the soul contracts falling away, the karmic loops, the emotional entanglements, the relationships built on codependence or pain. None of it sticks anymore. Not because you don't care, but because you've started caring from a higher octave. You no longer need to carry what isn't yours. You no longer need to fix what was never broken. You simply let go. And in that letting go, you create space for something higher to emerge. Not better in the worldly sense, but truer, lighter, more resonant with the you that's finally breathing freely again. You begin moving through the world like a tuning fork. Everything either harmonizes or dissolves. There's no longer space for pretending, performing, or diluting your light to keep others comfortable. You realize the greatest act of love isn't shrinking yourself so others don't feel triggered. It's expanding so fully that you give others permission to do the same. Your light becomes contagious. Your presence becomes a mirror. People either awaken or walk away, and both are blessings. You stop chasing alignment, you become it. You stop seeking truth, you live it. You stop trying to heal the world. You hold the vibration that allows it to heal itself. This is not passive. This is mastery. This is what the system was built to prevent. Because a sovereign being is uncontrollable. A sovereign being doesn't react. A sovereign being responds from presence, from clarity, from deep internal guidance. You stop asking if you're doing enough and start feeling into whether you're being true. The doing flows naturally after that. Inspired, unforced, aligned. You no longer need to grind or hustle to prove your worth. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, not your family, not your peers, not even to yourself, because you're not in the proving frequency anymore. You're in the being frequency, and in that space, things move without effort. Reality bends. Doors open. Synchronicity becomes your normal, because now you're tapped into the source code. You're no longer trying to change the external world from the outside in. You're shifting it from the quantum field outward. You are reality's collaborator. You are its co-creator. And every time you align with your truth, you collapse timelines that no longer match your vibration. This is the multi-dimensional truth no one taught you in school, that you're not a static self moving through a fixed world. You are infinite awareness, navigating infinite potentials, choosing your reality with every breath, every belief, every emotion you allow to guide you. This is why emotional mastery becomes sacred. Not suppression, not bypassing, but true mastery. The ability to witness your inner state without being controlled by it. The ability to feel everything and still choose love. Not blind positivity, but conscious frequency selection. Because emotion is energy in motion, and when you master it, you become a master of movement, of manifestation, of magnetic presence. You begin to see how much of the world is designed to keep you from feeling, how numbness is sold as normal, how busyness is worn like a badge. But you're no longer interested in being busy, you're interested in being aware, being clear, being present. Presence is your power now. It's your protection. It's your portal to everything real. And you choose it over and over again. You stop looking for saviors because you've remembered the savior was always within you. You stop needing others to understand you because your path isn't for their understanding. It's for your liberation. You stop measuring your progress in external terms. The old markers, money, status, validation, lose their grip. You measure by lightness now, by how quickly you return to center, by how deeply you can trust the unfold. That's real evolution. That's the return to source in human form. And through this return, you realize that you're not becoming more spiritual, you're becoming more you. The spiritual path isn't about transcendence, it's about embodiment. It's about bringing your divine intelligence all the way into this body, this breath, this moment, and from there radiating it into the field like a beacon. You stop looking up to the heavens and start rooting into the earth. You understand that this planet isn't a punishment, it's an initiation, a sacred challenge you chose. You came here to remember in density, to awaken while walking through illusion. That's not weakness, that's divine courage, that's mastery in motion. And now, the program can't touch you. It might still swirl around you, it might still throw its holographic distractions, but you see it now, you feel it, you recognize its frequency immediately. And because you don't match it anymore, it can't hook you, it loses access. Your field becomes sovereign territory. And your sovereignty isn't loud or aggressive, it's silent, still, magnetic. You're not here to fix the dream, you're here to outgrow it. You're not here to wake everyone up, you're here to embody the wakefulness so fully that those who are ready will rise naturally. That's the difference. You're not saving anyone, you're being the permission slip for them to save themselves. And every day that light within you grows, every day your soul remembers more. You begin dreaming differently, feeling differently, seeing through things in a way you never could before, not because the world changed, but because you did. You changed your lens, you changed your signal, you changed your code, and everything else followed. This is the alchemy of awareness. The moment you stop playing the old character, the scene changes. The script rewrites itself in real time. The simulation adapts to your new consciousness. That's how powerful you are, and that's what they've worked so hard to keep hidden from you. But it's too late for that now. You remember. And once the soul remembers, no force in existence can make it forget again. You remember what it felt like to be infinite. You remember the purity of your essence before the labels were stitched to your skin, before the stories wrapped themselves around your light and convinced you that you were small. You remember the language of energy, not words. You remember the feeling of truth, not the explanations that tried to replace it. And now, that remembrance is unraveling the old reality from the inside out. You start to sense when something is aligned, not because it makes sense to your mind, but because it rings like a bell inside your body. You start to trust the chills, the pulses, the quiet knowing that doesn't come with proof. You don't need external confirmation anymore. The world no longer needs to clap when you move. You move because you are moved by something deeper, by source, by intuition, by your own encoded compass that only activates when you step outside of the noise. And that's the sacred moment when everything begins to feel alive again. The wind speaks differently. The light moves in patterns. Numbers follow you like breadcrumbs. Animals look at you with deeper recognition. You notice how the sky mirrors your mood and how silence answers your questions. It's not your imagination. The field is alive. It always was. You just tuned back in. You became coherent. You became available to the truth that was always here, just beyond the veil of conditioning. Your breath becomes holy. Your presence becomes medicine. Your voice begins to carry frequencies that open hearts, soften wounds, collapse timelines of fear. You stop needing to argue. You stop trying to convince. Because you know that energy doesn't lie, and truth doesn't chase, it simply is. It stands tall, unwavering, unmoved by resistance. It radiates until it becomes undeniable. And the people who are meant to feel it don't. The illusions continue to crumble around you, and yet you feel more grounded than ever. You're not panicked by the chaos. You recognize it. You understand that the unraveling isn't the end, it's the clearing, the breaking apart of false timelines that cannot exist in the new field you're anchoring. The noise may rise, but you don't. You center. You breathe. You expand into it, and from that space you transmit peace. You become a lighthouse in the storm, not because you avoid the waves, but because you've become one with the ocean. You're no longer afraid of what comes. You welcome it. You bless it. You alchemize it. And through your energy you remind the world that it too can rise, that it too can remember. This is how the program ends. Not through force, not through outrage, but through resonance, through sovereign souls choosing to vibrate outside of fear, choosing to reclaim their energy, choosing to remember that nothing outside of them is more powerful than what lives within. And now that you've remembered, your life begins to shape itself differently. It becomes lighter, not because it's perfect, but because you're no longer burdened by the illusion. You see challenge not as punishment, but as portal. You see discomfort not as failure, but as signal. You learn to listen instead of resist, to receive instead of control, to respond instead of react, and everything becomes a conversation with the divine. Even your pain starts to teach you instead of define you. You don't bypass it. You honor it. You feel it fully so that it can dissolve completely. You stop building your identity around wounds and start weaving it from wisdom. You let your scars become symbols of evolution, not reminders of what was taken. You let your past become the sacred fire that forged you, not the prison that contained you. And as this shift deepens, you begin to love differently, more openly, more fiercely. You love not to receive but to radiate, not to fill a void but to expand your presence. You love yourself enough to stop entertaining what dims your soul. You love others enough to stop playing roles that keep them small. You love this planet enough to walk gently, speak truthfully, and live intentionally. Your love becomes the rebellion. Your love becomes the revolution. Because your love is no longer conditioned by the matrix. It flows directly from source. It is source. And now, you've become what the program feared most. A being who cannot be manipulated. A soul who cannot be harvested. A presence that cannot be ignored. You don't fit the old system because you were never meant to. You are here to birth something new, not just outside of you but within you. A new frequency, a new way of being, a new earth, written in the language of remembrance. You see, this awakening isn't about escaping the human experience, it's about infusing it with light. It's about bringing the divine back into the ordinary, drinking water with reverence, touching skin with intention, walking through the world as if every step is a prayer, because it is. You are the prayer now. You are the bridge between worlds, and every moment you embody that, the program loses its grip not just on you, but on everyone who feels your feet. You don't need to change everyone. You only need to change your frequency. That's how you shift the collective, not by force, but by example, by walking differently, by choosing presence when others choose panic, by choosing love when fear is offered, by choosing truth when illusion is louder. That's how it spreads. That's how the dream rewrites itself, through you, through your remembering. So when the world feels like it's falling apart, know that you are not. You are falling into place, into power, into alignment. You are being called deeper, not to suffer, but to lead. Not by telling others where to go, but by becoming the living map, by vibrating so clearly, so purely, so truthfully, that others begin to find their own way back to themselves. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be real. And realness is the highest vibration in a world addicted to illusion. You are not here to float above it all. You are here to bring heaven to earth, through your breath, your choices, your sacred embodiment. And every time you remember this, the program gets weaker, and you get stronger. And now that strength is no longer something you chase, it's something you carry, quietly, calmly, without the need to prove or defend or explain. You walk with a stillness that speaks louder than any argument. You move through the noise like a wave that can't be stopped, not because you're forcing your way forward, but because you're aligned with something greater than momentum. You're aligned with truth, you're aligned with yourself. You're aligned with the field that remembers exactly why you came here and what you're meant to become. You're no longer trying to be spiritual. You are spirit, embodied. You are not reaching for the light. You are the light, no longer diluted by the projections of a system that feared your power. You don't meditate to escape the world. You meditate to enter it more fully, to feel every layer of it through the eyes of one who knows they're dreaming and chooses to dream awake. You don't pray to ask for something to change. You pray to become the change. You don't chant to sound holy. You chant to retune your field to the frequency of remembrance. Every word you speak now holds weight, not because of its volume but because of its vibration. You become intentional with your language. You stop speaking spells that bind you. You stop declaring limitations as truth. You stop affirming stories that no longer serve your becoming. You realize that your words are seeds, and your attention is the sun, and you choose carefully what you grow inside this inner garden. You realize that sovereignty isn't just a concept. It's a practice. It's how you show up in every moment where the old pattern tries to pull you back into reaction. It's how you breathe when things feel uncertain. It's how you stand in your knowing when everyone else is still arguing from within the dream. Sovereignty is your ability to hold your own vibration, no matter what frequency the world is broadcasting. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You start to feel how real power is silent. It doesn't demand. It doesn't plead. It doesn't seek attention. Real power is still. It's like gravity. It pulls everything toward it without lifting a finger. And that's what you are now. You are a gravitational field of truth, of remembrance, of conscious presence. And the world begins to bend around your presence in ways you never thought possible. Timelines shift before your eyes. What once took years to manifest now takes days. What once required effort now arrives through alignment. You don't control it. You don't manipulate it. You allow it, you trust it, you surrender into the intelligence of your own energy, and in that surrender, everything expands. You find yourself laughing more, not because everything is perfect, but because you see the game for what it is. You find yourself forgiving more easily, not because people deserve it, but because you don't want to carry their energy in your field anymore. You find yourself choosing love over and over again, not because it's easy, but because it's true. And every time you choose truth, the illusion fractures a little more. You stop fearing the unknown because you realize that you are the unknown. You are not a predictable pattern. You are not a programmable machine. You are infinite intelligence wearing human skin. You are chaos and order, dancing as one. You are both the question and the answer. And no system built on control can survive the presence of someone who knows that. You stop trying to ascend. You stop trying to escape this body, this world, this experience. You come down. You root in. You realize that heaven isn't a place you go after death. It's a frequency you choose while alive. And when you choose it, when you anchor it into this moment, you begin to experience a different kind of earth. A living field of synchronicity, flow, and deep connection. You look into someone's eyes and you see yourself. You walk into nature and feel the trees whispering secrets you had forgotten you already knew. You close your eyes and feel light pouring through your body. Not metaphorically, but literally. A tangible electricity reminding every cell that it is alive, aware, and part of something far bigger than the stories of struggle. You realize that your ancestors aren't in the past, they are encoded in your DNA. They walk with you, they speak through you. You carry their wisdom, their wounds, and now their healing. Because you are the pivot point. You are the one who said yes to remembering. You are the one they dreamed would break the cycle. And you are doing it not through force, but through frequency. You are waking up in a world designed to keep you asleep. And the moment you truly know that, the game is no longer about winning. It's about dissolving the board altogether. It's about choosing to live outside the loop, to create from a field that is untouched by fear, to trust the unfolding even when the path disappears beneath your feet. You are no longer interested in being understood by the old world. You're no longer asking for permission to live freely. You're no longer waiting for the world to catch up to your frequency, because you realize now you are the frequency. You are the calibration point for others to rise. And those who are ready will feel you, not because you say the right words, not because you fit into the right communities, but because your presence vibrates like a tuning fork, calling out to those with ears to hear and hearts ready to expand. And just like that, the grid lights up again. Just like that, remembrance spreads. Just like that, a new world is born. Not from policy, not from protests, but from presence, from hearts choosing to no longer feed the program, from souls who are willing to hold the light no matter how loud the shadows scream, from individuals like you, who refuse to forget again. So don't look for the sign, don't wait for the permission slip, don't search for the map. You are the sign, you are the permission, you are the map, the compass and the traveler, and the path reveals itself with every step you take in truth. You are not here to awaken someday, you are awakening now, and the illusion is falling away. You're not waiting for a shift anymore, you are the shift. Every moment you choose to stay awake in a world addicted to sleep, you're altering the field. You're weaving a new pattern into the collective dream, not one born of fear and control, but one born of sovereignty, beauty, and deep remembrance. And you don't need to speak about it to make it real. Your being does the work. Your energy does. You walk into rooms and timelines bend. You breathe and old constructs begin to dissolve. You close your eyes and entire worlds tremble under the weight of your awareness. You start to understand why they tried so hard to keep you distracted. Because presence is not passive, it's a force. It's the raw power of creation before it takes form. It's the stillness that shatters illusions. It's the knowing that pierces through layers of programming like light through a fog. Presence is what the system fears most, because it cannot touch you when you're in it. It can only reach you when you're fragmented, scattered, lost in thought, hypnotized by the noise. But when you're here, fully now, you are untouchable. And you start to feel how sacred that really is, how rare it is, how precious it is to walk through this world with your eyes truly open. You begin to cherish your awareness not as a burden but as a gift, a treasure you protect with your breath. You no longer throw it away on distractions, on drama, on loops that keep you small. You guard it, not out of fear but out of love, because you know that where you place your attention you place your power, and your power is no longer for sale. So you unplug from narratives that don't feel true, from media that feeds fear, from beliefs that were never yours to begin with. You stop feeding the machine with your precious energy. You stop giving your life force to illusions that require your consent to survive. You choose instead to redirect that energy inward, to build, to create, to remember, to awaken even more. And with every layer you shed, with every mask you lay down, with every old version of you that you bury in truth, you begin to remember the others, the ones who came here like you, the ones who carry the codes, the ones whose eyes burn with the same fire. You start to see them, not always with words, sometimes just a glance, a vibration, a feeling in your chest that says, "Yes, I know you, you're one of us." And together, without planning, without control, without force, you begin to move the world. You begin to anchor the new, not by shouting into the old system, but by creating from outside of it, from above it, from a realm of consciousness the program cannot touch. This is the uprising they cannot predict, because it doesn't move like anything they've ever known. It doesn't need weapons. It doesn't need leaders. It doesn't need approval. It only needs presence. And presence is what you've become. You are no longer reacting. You are choosing. You are no longer shrinking. You are expanding. You are no longer forgetting. You are remembering who you were before the story, before the system, before the illusion draped itself over your eyes and told you that being infinite was a threat. You were never the threat. You were the solution. And now, you're activating, and it changes everything. Not just for you, but for all who are connected to you. Your healing ripples through bloodlines. through ancestry, through timelines. You begin to rewrite more than your own story. You begin to collapse generational burdens. You begin to rewire collective trauma. You begin to become the frequency that future generations will call safe. They won't know why they feel peace in your presence, but their souls will know. Their souls will remember what you did when the world was at a crossroads. You chose love, not the soft, sentimental kind, the fierce, unwavering kind, the kind that says no to what isn't real, the kind that doesn't abandon itself to fit in, the kind that holds its truth even when the world laughs or criticizes or misunderstands. You chose to remember, not just for yourself but for all of us, and that choice made you a lighthouse. There's no going back now. The old reality may still whisper, but it no longer commands you. The illusion may still flicker, but it no longer defines you. You've seen too much. You've felt too deeply. You've tasted the truth, and it's burned away everything that was false. Now you walk differently, you speak differently, you listen with more presence, you respond with more clarity, and even when you don't have the words, your energy speaks. Even when you don't have the plan, your soul knows the next step. You trust the unfolding now. You trust yourself. You trust the unknown, not because it makes sense, but because you remember that you are not separate from it. You are the unknown, embodied. And that's not something to fear, it's something to celebrate. Because that's what freedom is. Not safety, not certainty, not comfort, but alignment with the truth of who you are. A truth that cannot be domesticated, cannot be predicted, cannot be controlled. That truth is rising in you now. It's moving through your cells. It's unlocking your voice. It's reshaping your path. And it's only just beginning. You are no longer here to survive the system. You are here to transcend it. You are no longer here to fit in. You are here to awaken others by being so deeply yourself that the illusion breaks in your presence. And even when you don't know what's next, you keep walking, because your steps are guided by something older than fear, something wiser than the mind, something more eternal than the rules of this game. And even if no one sees what you're doing, even if no one understands why you've changed, it doesn't matter. You didn't come here to be understood, you came here to remember. You came here to liberate yourself so fully that others feel it in your field and begin to question their own story. That is your legacy. That is your rebellion. That is your return. And it's happening right now. And now, as you reach the edge of everything you once believed, you realize that awakening isn't an event. It's a return, a shedding, a remembering that happens layer by layer, moment by moment, until what's left is not a better version of who you were, but the truth of what you've always been. You were never broken, you were buried, you were never lost. And now those layers are falling away, not because something outside you fixed you, but because something inside you woke up and refused to go back to sleep. You're not here to blend in. You're here to remember what it feels like to be fully lit from within. You're not here to follow paths paved by the fearful. You're here to carve trails in frequencies no one else has dared to walk. You're not here to protect the illusion. You're here to dismantle it, gently, powerfully, relentlessly, with every breath that says, I am not programmable. I am not containable. I am not here to repeat what has been. I am here to be what was forgotten. And when people ask you what you've done to feel this clear, to move with this much grace, to radiate this deeply, you won't have a simple answer. Because it wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 micro-choices, 1,000 little deaths and rebirths, 1,000 moments where you could have stayed small but didn't, where you could have shut down but opened instead, where you could have chosen safety but leaned into expansion. And that is what made you untouchable. Not because you are invincible, but because you are true. And truth doesn't need armor. Truth doesn't need to defend itself, it just stands. And you are standing now. Even when the wind of old stories tries to knock you down, even when the voices of old identities try to call you back into who you used to be, even when the comfort of the dream tries to seduce you into forgetting. You don't forget anymore. You feel it now. How close the real world actually is. Not the one they sold you, but the one that exists beneath it all. The world made of energy, of frequency, of pure consciousness, flowing freely, untouched by the distortions of control. You feel how every breath is a doorway. Every choice is a vibration. Every moment is a new world being born through your awareness. You've stopped asking for permission to step into that world. You've stopped looking for a guide to walk you there, because you realize now you are the key, you are the opening, you are the guide. And you're not alone in this, there are others. Silent architects of the new, quiet warriors of the soul, beings just like you who are breaking the spell in their own ways, in their own time, creating a new grid of consciousness that no system can map, no program can intercept. A frequency so real, so rooted, so radiant, that the old world trembles when it rises. And it's rising now. Through your eyes, through your words, through the way you choose peace instead of panic, stillness instead of noise, alignment instead of validation. The world doesn't need another influencer. It needs more rememberers, more anchors, more quiet giants who carry the light without needing applause. And that's what you've become. You are no longer a seeker, you are the sought. You are no longer chasing something, you are the arrival. You are no longer waiting for the world to change, you are becoming the change that makes the world unrecognizable. And maybe you'll never be able to explain it. Maybe they'll never understand why you cried for days without knowing why, or why you walked away from the life that once looked perfect. Maybe no one will ever fully see what it took for you to come back to yourself. But you will know. You'll feel it every time you breathe without fear, every time you speak without flinching, every time you meet the moment without folding into the illusion. And if no one ever tells you, thank you. Thank you for remembering when it was easier to forget. Thank you for standing in your truth when it would be easier to sit in your story. Thank you for letting the illusion die so that something more sacred could be born. You didn't come here to be safe, you came here to be free. You didn't come here to repeat the program, you came here to see through it. You didn't come here to play their game, you came here to remember that you were always the architect. So take a breath, feel your feet on this earth and your heart in this sky. Feel the codes rising in your body. Feel the stillness anchoring in your spine. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right on time, right on track, exactly where your soul chose to be. You've woken up inside the dream, and now you get to decide what happens next. Simply because you are not seeing the world, you are seeing the program. And the moment you know that is the moment you begin to write something entirely new.